Hi, everybody. We're so glad you're able to join us today. My name is Lisa Jung, and I'm a developer advocate from the Elastic community team. So today I'm new to Elastic and want to learn how to get started. You're exactly where you need to be. So today we have a special guest, Steve Kearns, joining us. He's a VP of product management at Elastic. And the first time I ever watched his talk was about a year ago at ElasticCon Global. And I was just beginning to learn about Elastic at the time. And he just has a way of explaining the Elastic Stack in such a simple and clear manner. So I'm so excited that he'll be a part of your getting started journey. So in today's session, we'll be talking about what the Elastic Stack is and the three solutions that are built on top of it. And we'll also share some resources on how to get started as well. So Steve, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
So we have a lot of newcomers in the audience who are brand new to Elastic. So if you were to explain to a beginner what Elastic does in a few sentences, how would you describe it?
It's a good question. When I think about Elastic, I think of it really as a search platform that brings the power of search, this speed, this notion of high scale and search relevance to power a wide range of use cases and experiences. Something like building an e-commerce product, that's clearly search, right? But search for us also includes things like handling terabytes of logs per day and using those logs to spot an outage before your users report it. That's search to us. At the same time, you can use this in a lot of other ways, right? On the security side of the world, if you're looking for threats in your environment, right, there are search aspects to that. That's threat hunting. Threat hunting is searching through your data, looking for attacks, looking for the kind of behaviors that attackers leave behind. And so when we think about this, think of Elastic as really being this platform that lets you search or really use your data in a lot of different ways across a wide range of data and use cases. So it's a pretty broad platform and a pretty broad definition of search from our perspective.
No, that was fantastic. I remember when I was first starting with Elastic, I had the toughest time describing it. So I'm definitely going to use that. And I think what's so cool is that you've been with Elastic since year 2014, and you pretty much have built the products from scratch. And in the beginning, there was only Elasticsearch. And since then, various products and solutions have joined the family. So could you tell us about these products and solutions and when we would consider using them?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Yeah, it's been tremendous fun. Yeah, almost 8 years with Elastic. That's almost forever in Elastic time. And the products have come a tremendous way. It's incredibly mind-blowing to think of where we started when I joined and where we are now. But one of the ways to think about it, everything that we do is based around Elasticsearch. The core of the Elastic Stack, the core of our products is Elasticsearch. It's the only place that we store data in the platform. And for a long time, we built and focused only on the core platform, Elasticsearch itself, and then Kibana as a UI on top of that. And this was our primary focus to say, let's widen the platform. Let's make Elasticsearch good at ingesting logs really fast. Let's make it good at storing geospatial information. Let's make it efficient and powerful for querying and doing analytics queries on numbers and numerics. And for a long time, up until about 4.5 years ago, that was our focus. We said, how do we widen the platform, make it good at more things, but without really specializing in very many things. And about 4.5 years ago, we really started to say, we as a product, we as a company, we as a community, the Elastic community have reached a size and a scale that we owe it to ourselves, to our users, to our community to begin specializing, to give better experiences for these most common use cases that we see. And so you can see almost, it is 4 years ago, we started joining forces with companies who were building on top of the Elastic Stack, these specialized experiences. And since that time, we've really leaned in to say, how do we provide a really excellent experience for a DevOps engineer walking up for the first time saying, how do I get my data in? How do I understand the performance of my applications and my infrastructure? And so we started this process of specialization in these three different domains, these three different areas. The first area maybe is our classic enterprise search. And in this area, we work really hard to say, how easy can we make it for you to get in your business data sources? How easy can we make it for you to build meaningful applications on top of Elastic, right? And so we've built really a first-class experience for developers, and even to some extent IT folks, for bringing in sort of search data on that side of things. Then there's on the observability side of things, one of our bigger use cases, how do you efficiently bring in logs? Well, to get logs into the system, you need to collect them from somewhere. And so over the years, we've done a tremendous amount of work on data ingest. For a long time, we've been working on a family of data ingestion components we call beats, with file beat and packet beat and metric beat and winlog beat and so on and so forth. And so a lot of these investments that we've been making have been really trying to simplify these common experiences. And the story is the same in security. And so it's sort of interesting that the same core products, Elasticsearch and Kibana, that we've had this whole time, they've kind of grown these specialized experiences inside. And so when you open Kibana, you open the UI of our platform for the first time, you see, hey, there's a ton of integrations that I can work with. There's a ton of ways to bring data in. And then there's a first-class experience for dealing with observability data, dealing with APM, working with security data, and performing investigations. So this specialization has really helped us really bring in a whole new category of users over time, which has been quite wonderful.
Definitely. I mean, I have a follow-up question on that. So you were just talking about these three solutions and how they're built on top of the Elastic Stack. And they're pretty much consisting of the same products that comprises the Elastic Stack, and it's just geared towards more specific use cases. So at what point should we consider using these solutions versus building it ourselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's one of those, it's not really an either or kind of a question. And that's the benefit of the way we've built the products, that if you're doing observability, you're bringing logs or infrastructure metrics or APM data into the Elastic Stack, we allow you to decide, hey, how do you want to bring that data in? You could write the data collection tooling yourself if you really want to, but we provide as APIs, and it's very straightforward to do, but we provide these pre-canned integrations that make this easy for the common use cases and try to really simplify that. There's always more we can do to make it easier to get started, but that's one of those big areas that we've put a lot of energy into. And I think we're well down the path of simplifying that. The other end is on the UI side. So again, one of the wonderful powers of Elastic is you can explore the data at your own speed. You can build your own dashboards on top of the data. And we've got a wonderful sort of visualization building engine called Lens that makes it easy to drag and drop your way to a visualization that's meaningful. But for a lot of these common use cases, if you're doing something like APM, we know the kind of experience that you're going to want. And so we've pre-built a lot of that for you. So you don't have to go and create all of those dashboards. You don't have to make them yourself. But there's also nothing stopping you from saying, hey, I like the view that you have here in APM, but I'd like to bring in the business view of how many customers I have that have accessed this feature this month. Okay, well, you can just build a dashboard for that and go beyond what we provide in those built-in applications. And so I think it's a lot about flexibility and about using the parts of the stack that you need, and then remembering that these other parts exist. So if you are using us for APM and you're only in the APM UI, that's great. But don't forget, you can always go and build a dashboard to drill into that data and get yourself a different view. And I think that's a really powerful aspect for both to help people get started at the beginning, but then realize that there's no real limit to how you want to look at that data and how you can look at that data. Because for us, all of this, whether it's a log, whether it's infrastructure metrics, whether it's security data, endpoint security, or raw documents, you can look at these data, it's all in one system. And so there's nothing preventing you from pivoting between the different kinds of views of the different kinds of data that you might have in your environment.
So it's pretty much having all the tools at your disposal to create whatever it is that you want. I was thinking, so when I was first learning, I started with a self-managed option where I downloaded the Elastic Stack and ran it in my own environment. And as I learned more, I realized that, there are various ways you could deploy the Elastic Stack, such as Elastic Cloud and Elastic Orchestration. So could you tell us about these deployment options and why you would choose one option over the other?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the way that I think about this, and my thinking on this has evolved as our offerings have matured. I think today that Elastic Cloud is by far the best way to deploy and use the Elastic Stack. And really, it comes down to being a managed service. And a managed service from us, the people behind the products. And it really simplifies what does it take to get started? How challenging is it to scale up the deployment as the scale of data increases? And even things like upgrades become a single button click in the UI. Things like auto scaling become possible in a way that is a lot more difficult if you're sort of downloading this to individual servers and running it yourself. Now, having said that, our software has been downloadable. One of the nice things about it, one of the reasons we've historically tried to avoid the word platform is it is light enough you can run it on your laptop, right? And there's a huge advantage to having it right with you at all times. And so that's not something that we'll ever sort of move away from, but it is important to know that the SaaS offering, the software as a service, does exist, and it does provide a lot of these key advantages. Now, one interesting thing that we've seen in some of our bigger sort of customers and users has been this desire to say, well, it's great that I can run it on my laptop, and it's great that it can run in the public cloud, but I, for compliance reasons, regulatory reasons, need to run it myself. And so we do have what we call Elastic Cloud Enterprise or Elastic Cloud on Kubernetes that say, look, if you're running a Kubernetes infrastructure and you want to stand up an Elasticsearch cluster, this should be straightforward. And so in those environments, we do have a Kubernetes operator that makes it very easy to get started, to deploy clusters, and then to manage those clusters and scale them and upgrade them and so forth. And so, this idea of sort of choosing your own adventure, I think it's a real factor in terms of what does your environment look like, where are you in your adoption cycle, and so forth. But it is a really powerful system. And the nice part about all of these options, they're not mutually exclusive. Many of our customers will start development on their laptops today. They'll move that development into a small, teeny tiny little cluster in Elastic Cloud. And when they're ready to go to production, they'll scale that up, or they'll create a clone of that to bring into production. And so a lot of these different deployment methods, I think, are complementary rather than competing. But by far the easiest, especially for folks just getting started, is Elastic Cloud. You don't have to think about a lot of the moving parts, and you can focus on doing the things that you can uniquely do for your business, for your project, or for your maybe new company.
Definitely. I just remember just downloading the Elasticsearch and Kibana and trying to make everything work. And then I learned about Elastic Cloud, and you can do all of that with just simple clicks. And the difference was just night and day. So definitely, I agree with that. And speaking of, even during the year I've been with Elastic, there's been countless improvements made in our products and solutions. And all of these changes made getting started even easier. So could you share a few examples of these improvements that have been released in the past couple months or so?
Yeah, I think, over the last year, we've really had a big focus on saying how easy, how simple can we make it to get started with the stack? And maybe one of the bigger areas is just the general onboarding flow. The first time you create a cluster in Elastic Cloud, or the first time you open up Kibana, you now have a bit of a guided experience that takes you through a couple of questions that say, would you like to be bringing data into this product? How would you like to bring it in? What data sources would you like to connect to? And a lot of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes to sort of make that possible has been on what I referred to earlier, this idea of Elastic Agent, this ability to collect data from endpoints or connect to cloud services and pull data down. Historically, we had and still have a number of beats, file beat, packet beat, and so forth. But going forward, we're putting a lot of energy into bringing those into a single agent, right? One of the challenges with lots of beats, I want to collect logs and metrics even from my local machine as a test. I have to download file beat, I have to download metric beat, I have to configure them both, and then I have to monitor them both to make sure they're running and all of that. And I have to configure them locally in local config files. And as we looked at that, we said we can provide a better experience. And so we put a tremendous amount of work into what we call Elastic Agent. Think of this as a single centrally managed agent. You install the one agent, enroll it into central management as part of your deployment. And now right from inside of Kibana, you can say, what data sources do I want to collect from the systems and services that are running on the hosts running Elastic Agent? And that has dramatically simplified what it takes to get started. And so I think that maybe is one of our biggest single steps. There's a number of other things that we're doing. So one of the big things coming up with 8.0 is a big shift in, for self-managed users, people downloading and running it themselves. A big shift is actually turning security on by default. This sounds like an obvious thing, but providing an easy, straightforward, and simple experience for getting security enabled and making sure that no clusters are out there running insecure is a big deal. And it is a big undertaking to say, how simple can you make that? Because when you start to get into the realm of saying, well, this is easy, just, configure your SSL certificates. Oh my goodness, now things start to feel more complicated. And so we put a lot of effort into different aspects of the getting started experience. And you can see that throughout the progression in the 7.x series and even more so in 8.0.
No, I remember getting a lot of questions about how to secure the stack from all of my viewers. So this is definitely a helpful feature for sure.
Now, maybe we can turn the tables around, Lisa. I mean, so, you've talked a little bit about sort of how I think about the world, but I'd love to see some of your guidance for the folks watching today around what can they do to get started. I mean, you joined just over a year ago Elastic. What's been your experience as a beginner? How has it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey for sure. So I'm a non-traditional software developer. So when I started at Elastic, not only was I relatively new to coding, but I was brand new to Elastic. And I love that there were so many resources out there, but a lot of these were geared towards developers who've been using Elastic for a long time. And these resources had a lot of jargon and concepts that went straight over my head. And I think a reason for that is, a lot of content creators have been working with Elastic for a long time, and the whole process has become second nature to them. So when they're creating these tutorials, it's really easy to, skip over certain concepts or steps. Now, if you're a veteran Elastic user, you can keep up with it, no problem. But when a beginner like me tries to follow these tutorials, it's really easy to get lost. So when I was just getting started, I remember looking up like 6 resources to just understand one concept. And as I started working with Elasticsearch, I just didn't know what I didn't know and would make silly mistakes. And I would spend hours on Stack Overflow or the discussion forum to figure out what I was doing wrong. And while I learned a lot through this experience, I didn't want other developers to go through the same struggles as I did. So I decided to create resources that I wish I had when I was getting started with the Elastic Stack. And my non-traditional background really came in handy. So before my life as a developer, I worked in science, government, and the startup ecosystem. And one of many cool jobs I had was teaching anatomy to pre-med students at a university. And the teaching skills I developed there really helped me to create content that speaks to beginners. So the first course I created is called the Beginner's Crash Course to Elasticstack. And this is geared towards developers who are just starting out with Elasticsearch and Kibana. And the series consists of 6 workshops where we go over, how you can download Elasticsearch and Kibana in your own environment, and how you can sign up for Elastic Cloud, which makes working with Elastic so much easier. And we also go over, how to write Elasticsearch queries and aggregations to search and analyze your data. Then we talk about optimal mapping, which allows Elasticsearch to efficiently store and search for data. Then we wrap up by troubleshooting beginner level errors with Elasticsearch and Kibana. Now, each workshop is about an hour long. I know it's pretty long. So I wanted to create shorter content to make it more digestible. So I created the mini beginner's crash course to Elasticsearch and Kibana. So the first season consists of 10-minute videos that go over the same content featured in the beginner's crash course. And right now, I'm developing content for season 2. So in season 2, we'll be building a full stack JavaScript app, which will be connected to Elasticsearch. And we'll be learning, how to manage time series data and talk about data stream, index lifecycle management, and searchable snapshots. And we'll also visualize this data using Kibana. So I'm really working hard on that right now. So stay tuned for that as well.
Oh, that's great. And this kind of content is so important for helping folks to get started quickly. I mean, I remember my first experience. Now it's quite a long time ago with Elasticsearch, almost 9 years ago. And that feeling of being able to oh my gosh, I've got a document. Now I'm able to search that. I can search it in these different ways. That quick win and that feeling of success going throughout. That's what I love about what you baked into a lot of these courses. So where can folks who are watching find this content, and what are there other resources that you might recommend to folks getting started?
Yes, I came prepared with all the links. So let me share my screen real quick. Just 1 second. Okay, so just a heads up, all the resources I'm about to share will be included in the chat and the description of this video. So if you are a developer new to Elasticsearch and Kibana, I would definitely start with my beginner series to get the basics. Now, if you're looking to get started with Elastic solutions such as Elastic Enterprise Search, Observability, and Security, Elastic offers free training. And the links to all those resources are included here. And we also host a lot of meetups on these solutions as well. And I listed the playlist for each solution under additional playlist. Now, what if you have questions about Elastic? Well, the best place to ask is on the discussion forum or the community Slack channel. So we have developer advocates, elasticians, and members of our community answering questions on these platforms. So I would definitely take advantage of that. Now, if you're interested in how other developers are using Elastic in the real world, the official Elastic community YouTube channel is a great resource. So we post all of our community meetups as well as content from developer advocates and other elasticians here. And my beginners playlists are also posted in this channel as well. Now, lastly, on-demand videos from the Elastic Community Conference and ElasticOn Global Talks talks about all you could learn from Elastic. And these are not only created from a developer's perspective, but also from a practitioner's point of view as well. So I would definitely check that out as well. All right, so it's time for us to wrap up. We hope that you found these sessions really helpful. Now, after this session, make sure to check out these resources and see what you can do with Elastic. So Steve, thank you again for joining us, and we'll wrap up here. Bye, everyone.